program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm your host, Marcia Teal, and we have another wonderful program for you today. If you're a caregiver or know a caregiver and caring for someone who can no longer care for themselves, especially someone that has some form of memory loss, dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, Parkinson's type dementia, frontal temporal lobe, it doesn't matter. If someone is suffering and they have memory loss, then this show is for you, the caregiver, because we interview experts in the field of caregiving and also experts in fields that caregivers need to know about to make their caregiving efforts less challenging. So today we're going to be talking to one of those experts who's written a book, and I'm very excited to have her on. You can watch us live on your computer or your smartphone at caregiversolutions.info. If you'd like to watch us, the video is running now. Or you can listen to us anywhere on iHeartRadio under WNN 1470. However you are joining us, I'm glad that you are. So caregiving, it's just something that people need to learn how to do when they're actually thrown into it. So it's one of those kind of jobs that you learn on the job. And the more you know, the better your caregiving efforts will be, the less stress you'll encounter, and hopefully the happier you and the person you're caring for will be also. So today we're going to be talking about some different things we've never talked about on the program before, so I'm very excited to have our special guest. She is standing by via her office telephone, and we're going to bring her on. Her name is Jennifer Fitzpatrick. Jennifer is someone who has written a book that we talked to her about that book back in August of 2017. And she was so interesting and had so many great things to share. We thought it'd be a good idea to bring her back now to get updates from her. And so we're going to be talking about some things that, you know, perhaps you never even thought of. It's going to be a very informative show. So let's go right now to Jennifer standing by. Jennifer, are you there?
Hi, Marcia.
Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thanks for having me back.
I'm glad to have you back. I've been waiting to get to you via your busy schedule because I want to let everybody know that not only did you actually write a book, I have it right here, a copy. It's called Cruising Through Caregiving, and the subtitle is Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One. And Jennifer Fitzpatrick, who is an author, a speaker, a care consultant, a gerontologist, and among other things, has written this book, and it's been very popular. We talked about it on the show back in August of 2017, but we just basically touched the tip of the iceberg. We got about maybe 3 of the chapters that we got to talk about. So she promised that she'd be back, and here she is. I'm very excited to have you. We have your picture up on the screen. Nice to see you. You look wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me back. Yeah. Well, whenever you talk about caregiving, there's always more left on the table to talk about later.
Absolutely, because things are always changing, right?
Absolutely.
That's one thing that caregivers can sort of depend on, that their roles are ever changing, because with dementia and Alzheimer's disease specifically, as someone is progressing through the disease, they're changing. So a caregiver has to keep up and change along with it. And it's not a really easy thing to do. So you got to be ready. And so this is what this show is about. And Jennifer, you're going to help us again today with helping those caregivers. We talked about last time, it was a good idea or not for you to move in, with your loved one that you need to take care of, the pros and cons of that. We talked about being an advocate for someone that has dementia because they can't do it alone, and getting your team together. We also talked about the doctor doesn't really know everything, and sometimes you need to challenge the doctor. So today we're going to take another little twist, and we're going to talk about something that kind of actually has to do with your book, but not really. So I'm kind of setting you up here to talk to us about this new special seminar, I guess webinar type of thing that's coming up soon. I'll let you share with us and tell us all about it, but it's a virtual book club. So let's talk about that. What's going on?
So we're going to be, Cruising Through Caregiving and I have partnered with two really great organizations to offer a free virtual book club for dementia caregivers. And what that really means, if you heard the word book club before, and you know what a book club is, but you hear the word virtual, basically it means that we're going to hold a book club for 15 weeks, and we're going to have you join either by computer or you can call in through your phone. And if you don't want to do either of those, you can just still sign up, and we can email you the recording of the book club meeting. So there's 3 different ways that you can join the virtual book club for dementia caregivers.
So, Jennifer, I have a question. First thought comes to mind. Caregivers don't have time to read books, right? So this is not just a regular book. You're going to be talking about your book, which is for and about caregiving, correct?
Right. So the book club is going to be focused on cruising through caregiving. Now, cruising through caregiving, as you mentioned, is a book for any caregiver. It could be you're caregiving for someone with dementia, or you're caregiving for somebody who has some other condition. But the slant we're going to go with the book club, with Hilarity for Charity and Oasis Senior Advisors, is that every chapter of Cruising Through Caregiving, we are going to examine from the viewpoint of a caregiver taking care of a loved one who has dementia. So, for example, the first week is in Cruising Through Caregiving, the chapter is called Caregiving 101. So the way we're going to examine it is Caregiving 101 through the lens of the dementia caregiver.
So you're going to talk about each chapter relative to helping a person caring for someone with some form of dementia.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, you made a great point, Marcia, that if you are a caregiver, a lot of times you don't necessarily have a lot of time to read. You don't necessarily have to have read Cruising Through Caregiving to get benefit.
Good to know.
So, yeah, and the thing that's really nice is, so if you want to register, you just go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com and just sign up. It's that simple. You give us your email address, and we send you all the links. And so Marcia brought up the great point that you don't always have time to sit at your computer and participate live or read a book. But if you sign up, we're going to send you the link, and what the link will be is something you can either download onto your cell phone. You can listen to it in your car. You can listen to it when you're taking a walk. So there's a lot of ways that you can get the benefit. The other great thing about this Dementia Virtual Book Club is it's not going to just be about cruising through caregiving. It's going to we're going to have a lot of other experts, and we have some really good people lined up so far, and you're going to get the benefit of hearing, certainly I have some things I'd like to share with folks who are caregivers, but also from other experts who have some really terrific ideas on how you can make caregiving for your loved one with dementia less stressful.
Wow, that sounds really good. So is it passive participation where you're just listening, or is there a way for a caregiver to be more involved, on the computer with asking questions?
Yeah, it's going to be both. So if you're somebody, you just want to listen, you just want to take it all in, you can do that. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to write anything in on your computer. But also, if you want to, we're going to take questions. We're actually going to ask people to send their questions ahead of time. So the Dementia Caregiver book club, the virtual book club, starts May 15th. So I guess we're about, a good 7 weeks out. So we start May 15th, and we're going to meet at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesdays for 15 weeks straight.
Well, that sounds good. So everybody can plan this. It's going to be consistent for the 15 weeks, so caregivers can plan their day to participate. And if they miss a week or two, is it going to be a problem?
No, not at all. That's a great question, Marcia. So the thing that's really cool about the way we're doing is some people, for example, we have a whole chapter on budgeting and caregiving, so managing money and caregiving. And, of course, we're going to talk about how to stretch your budget or how to find resources. But let's say you're one of those people who genuinely doesn't have to worry about money. Don't worry about that week. We're having a week on career and dementia caregiving. So if you have a job and you're trying to balance that with dementia caregiving, and you're not working, maybe you're retired, don't worry about that week. So you can pick and choose which weeks you want to participate in, but if you register, you will have access to every recording. So again, if you want to register for it, it's cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. I just mentioned the week on career and caregiving. I'm actually really, really excited about that week because we're going to have as our guest AARP's career and work expert on caregiving and work balance, Amy Goyer. So really excited for her to join us that week.
Well, that'll be really good. So here's the big question. What does it cost?
So it's completely free, and it's really very exciting because the program is being sponsored by two really nice organizations. One is Oasis Senior Advisors, and the other one is Hilarity for Charity. So I'm glad to talk to you a little bit about both of them. If you're interested in hearing a little bit about what those guys do,
I do. I want to know about the sponsors because I think that that is very important to know what they do, because we had chatted just before the show, and there are some great benefits to people knowing about both organizations in general. So we're going to hold that thought, because when we come back from our commercial break, we're going to talk about that. So we'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides.
Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
We're back, and my special guest today is Jennifer Fitzpatrick. Jennifer has a master's in social work, and she's an author, a speaker, a gerontologist, among many other things. I'm so excited to have her back with us to talk about caregiving. Specifically, she's talking about a brand new, is forming right now, brand new free dementia caregiver virtual book club. So it's going to be starting May 15th of this year, 2019, and you can sign up. It's free. You can learn for 15 straight weeks in a row, all kinds of things related to her book, Cruising Through Caregiving, and much, much more. So thank you, Jennifer, for that information. So we want to continue on this thought because you mentioned that your virtual book club has 2 sponsors. Tell me about them, and let's touch a little bit about what they do and how they can help caregivers.
Yeah, so these are 2 amazingly good organizations. So one is Hilarity for Charity. So many of your listeners may know the actor Seth Rogen. He is in a lot of funny movies. He and his wife, Lauren Miller Rogen, began a charity called Hilarity for Charity, and that's hilarityforcharity.org. And the reason that they built the charity was because Lauren Miller Rogen's mom developed young onset dementia when she was in her 50s.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and the Rogans are actually young themselves. They are in their 30s. Mm-hmm. And they, the story goes, they said to themselves, gosh, we're in a very fortunate position. They can afford care for their mom. And they realized that there were a lot of people that weren't really in that position. So what they did is they created Hilarity for Charity. They've raised, I believe, I'm not quite sure the exact number, but I think it's around $8 million so far.
Wow.
And what they do that's very, very special and very unique is they give out grants so you can keep your loved one home for a period of time. Now, this isn't forever. Keep in mind, it's about 24 hours a week for 6 months. So you can apply, and if you are interested, please know that this is basically you have to fill out an application, hilarityforcharity.org, and there's a button where you can apply, and you can do the whole application. I believe you can either print it or do it online. I think you can do both. But you basically tell your story, and there's no financial requirement. Now, you have to demonstrate that you have a need, but they're not asking you, for your tax forms or anything like that. But you have to explain, why 6 months of 24 hours a week would be helpful for you and your family. The other option that they offer is a one-time emergency respite grant, which is 50 hours of home care. So hilarityforcharity.org, again, Hilarity for Charity, they fund about 250 grants. So they impact about 250 families per year. I'm so proud to be associated with them because I'll tell you, the founders are very serious. They are out there. They actually mostly work with young people and colleges on raising money. They actually go out to the colleges to do shows. You might know that they have Netflix specials. But anyway, so also for your listeners who maybe are in a good financial place and they don't need the grant, it's definitely a charity that you may want to consider supporting. So if you're in need and this grant might help you, you can apply at hilarityforcharity.org. But on the other hand, if you find that you are fortunate that you don't need the money and you have a little to spare, you might want to make a donation to hilarityforcharity.org.
Well, I think that's wonderful. And, they're doing a lot of good work because all of the money raised, it all goes toward helping caregivers and people staying at home longer through some kind of financial assistance for home health, correct?
Right, and the thing that I like so much, Marcia, is I think there are some families like you, when you move someone into an Arden Court, sometimes people have to sell their house before they're prepared to move mom in, right? Something like a Hilarity for Charity grant for some families might be, like let's try to do that. Like maybe you need home care for a week, for a couple weeks for mom, or a couple of months for mom before you're able to get the house sold. So those, I think that it's a nice gap filler. And then for some families, it might just be that, just gives the family a break. Maybe the family's taking shifts. They're all taking turns. So it's really a unique charity, and I'm really honored to be connected with them because I'm just so, I just am in awe, actually, of what they're doing.
Right, and also what I think is pretty neat is that you mentioned a lot of the fundraising is done with younger people, and I think by doing that, it's raising awareness with the next generation coming up that will be involved in caregiving probably at some point in their lives.
Well, you bring up a really good point. One of the things that Hilarity for Charity is trying to get out there, again, remember the founders are younger. They are 25% of all caregivers right now are millennials. And I think that gets lost. I don't think people realize that it does impact every generation.
That's right. So they're really doing more than what meets the eye, because I think the awareness, the education that they're providing in the process of creating the gains and the monetary for the charitable organization is really going to help future generations to understand and be more aware to continue that, but also to be educated about what is a caregiver and what's involved in caregiving. So, kudos to them. I'm going to really check them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other sponsor, so it's a three-way partnership between my company, Generations Health, and Cruising Through Caregiving, Hilarity for Charity, and then Oasis Senior Advisors is actually underwriting the project. And what Oasis Senior Advisors does is they help people to identify where, if they are in a position where they're thinking, I need more help, whether it be home care, whether it be assisted living, whether they need a referral to an elder law attorney. This is a service that they provide free to the community. And I know people can be listening from anywhere right now, but there is actually an Oasis Senior Advisors in Southeast Florida. So if wherever you're listening, if you're interested in finding out more about what Oasis Senior Advisors does, just go to oasisssenioradvisors.com. We couldn't be doing the virtual dementia book club without their sponsorship. They've also done a lot to get the word out about Hilarity for Charity, what Hilarity for Charity is doing, how they're helping. So it's really been a nice win-win. And the thing that's nice is both of these services are free, and they're out there. They're available to folks. So, oasisssenioradvisors.com, and again, in most parts of the country, you can find that service. If you want to sign up for the virtual book club for dementia caregivers, all you have to do is go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. And again, I just want to reiterate that it is 15 weeks, starts May 15th. You do not need to own a copy of the book. You don't even need to read the book. You can really just listen to the book club, or we're going to have an opportunity for people to send questions in ahead of time or during the sessions. But if you just want to sign up and get the recordings sent to you, you can download them to your phone, listen to them in your vehicle. So it's just a free service. So these are just 3 free services I just wanted to share and tell you a little bit about. And again, I think one of the cool things, Marcia, that is neat is you see, young celebrities really taking this cause so seriously. It makes me really happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to listen live, they can sign up and join you week to week. If they can't, maybe, something's going on in their life that takes precedence, they can sign up and then maybe jump in any time, right? It doesn't have to be that if you miss the first couple, you're going to miss all of it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can jump in at any point. And the way that I wrote Cruising Through Caregiving really was that you don't have to read the book the whole way through.
Yeah, not from cover to cover. You can pick and choose.
No,
I know that about your book because I read it, and every chapter is a lesson in and of itself.
Well, right, because, and there's a lot of us, we want to skim parts that we need and take some of it, and so just, or, you also, if you sign up for the book club, you can just come to 1 or 2 sessions. So it's whatever you want. Also, if you did want to read the book, but you are on a budget, most libraries are carrying it. So either in the Kindle version and in the hard copy. So I just wanted to make people aware that, of course, as an author, I would love for you to purchase the book. But if you are on a budget and you do want to read it, most libraries are carrying it.
Wonderful. I have a copy right here. I'm showing it to the camera. So if people are watching us via the website, they can see the book, what it looks like right here, Cruising Through Caregiving. Let's talk now something about another topic, because you actually gave a great segue to this topic when you mentioned if people don't have the money to buy a book, if they don't have the money to pay for respite care, that's where the Hilarity for Charity can come in. They don't have the money for home health. Let's talk about ways that we can share with caregivers on a budget how to get some of these services.
Right. Okay, so first of all, if you are a caregiver, and I say this every time, and I'm sure, Marcia, you give the same advice. If you're a caregiver, the very first thing you want to do is go to your local area agency on aging. And every county, every city in the country is mandated to have one. You want to go to yours, and I know people are listening from all over. I'm sure Marcia can tell us the name of the local one in Southeast Florida, but if you're not sure where yours is, you can go to N as in Nancy, the number 4, A.org. So N4A.org. You put in your zip code, and it'll pop out where yours is. So I would start there, and you want to get to know them, say, hey, this is the situation, this is what's going on with my husband, this is what's going on with my mom, and ask them, say, listen, with my situation, are there services that I should be aware of? Is there, or if you're on a really specified budget, or you'd say, look, I'm struggling with getting this need met. They can tell you about services like Meals on Wheels. They can tell you sometimes about other respite programs that might be out there that maybe aren't as heavily publicized. So I always say make a friend at your local area agency on aging.
Absolutely. It's the other AAA. So it's AAA, Area Agency on Aging, not American Automobile Association. So there's 2 AAAs, and the one for caregivers is this Area Agency on Aging. And that's a great point, Jennifer, because they are such a great resource for the area that they serve. And I think a lot of people are remiss by not, checking them out and seeing what they can provide, because people might not even think about some of the things that they could offer to help caregivers and the person they're caring for.
And it's not for any socioeconomic group. It's for every socioeconomic group. So you might think to yourself, well, oh gosh, maybe I have a lot of money or assets, and I don't know that I would gain anything from calling a public agency, but it's for everybody. So that's the Older Americans Act many years ago mandated that all parts of the country have these organizations. So just know that they're knowledgeable, they're resourceful. If you tell them what you're going through, look, I don't want to overpromise. They can't solve every problem you have, but most of the time they can point you in the right direction.
Right, and that's what most times caregivers need. They just need to be pointed in the right direction to get whatever it is that they're looking for. What other resources can caregivers tap into if they're on a budget and they don't have money, but they need some help and they're tired, they need a respite, maybe they could use someone coming in to relieve them for a little while? What other resources are there, Jennifer?
So real quickly, and I'm sure you guys talk about this every probably most times, but just always reminder the Alzheimer's Association, ALZ.org, 800-272-3900. They have so many free services and programs like support groups, like educational programs. And I think that just, and one of the things that can really help people is maybe you have family and friends that don't really understand what you're going through. You can send them a link to a video that explains it on the Alzheimer's Association website, or maybe a support group in that person's geographic area. So just know that that's another one. That's if you have a loved one with dementia, that's the other big one. As far as when you're on a budget or you're trying to really be careful about money, In Cruising Through Caregiving, I have an exercise called the MET exercise, M-E-T, and it starts for money, energy, and time. And so my whole philosophy on caregiving is you cannot, and I think most experts will tell you this, you can't do it by yourself. And I'm sure, Marcia, you've heard this many times. So many family caregivers, oh, I'm the only one, I'm the only one, I'm the only one. And rarely is that really true, because even if you're the only child, even if you live far away from your kids or your cousins or your grandkids, there's somebody. And I want you to think really hard about who are you excluding from caregiving. And that might sound a little funny at first, but think about it. There are probably people, for example, when you're caring for your mom and her friends want to do something. Maybe she spent a lot of time with her girlfriends before she got sick. And now we're not saying that her friends should come over and give her a bath. Maybe that's not appropriate. Maybe that's not something they'd be interested in doing. But maybe they can come over and bring cookies and hang out with her while you do some chores around the house.
Right.
Or maybe they can do your grocery shopping, or maybe they can pick up mom's prescriptions. Most people want to help if you ask and you give them something that they feel like they can handle.
Yeah, they're really happy to do that if you just... Sometimes they don't do it because they don't know what to do, and sometimes they don't want to overstep their boundaries by offering. But if a caregiver just takes that first little step and say, gee, it'd be nice if, someone could, sit with mom or maybe run to the drugstore and pick up the medicine for her, that would be great. And then people can volunteer, and they're very happy to do that. And I totally agree with you that people do want to help, and it makes them feel good to do that.
And I think not everybody that you ask will help. There will be people that disappoint you. But I think more often than not, there are people in your network. And when I say your network, in the MET exercise, I say write down at least 20 people who care about you, and write down at least 20 people who care about your loved one who's ill. And usually you're going to maybe have some overlap, like maybe if it's your husband, your son cares about both of you. But you're going to wind up with at least 25 or 30 people. And it could be someone from your church or your temple. It could be somebody that, your husband went to college with that, he sees once a year. It could be, there's so many people in your network. We know so many people. And most people want to contribute if they know what's going on and if they feel like they have permission.
Right. And these people that you're speaking of, they're going to either provide money, their energy, or their time, or a combination thereof. Is that the idea?
Yeah. And, one other example, I just love sharing this because it's such one that I never even thought of. I had a colleague once who told me that she was flying in about every 4 to 6 weeks to help. She was sort of a secondary caregiver to give her siblings a break. She was flying in to help with her parent who was ill. And what wound up happening is her parents' friends, because, this person was spending a lot of money flying in and out. And in order for her to save a little money on renting a car, her parents' friends would say, hey, take one of our cars for the week you're in town. Now, that's a way to contribute that is saving you money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these folks were very delighted to do it, and they felt like they were doing something. They felt like they were contributing. But again, they're not over there, showering their friend, right? Like, I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, I can't ask somebody to do direct care. And I think that's true. A lot of times we don't want to just have anybody and everybody, helping out in the bathroom, but there's a lot of ways people can contribute.
Yeah, I like that idea because actually they are contributing monetarily, but not by actually handing money. They're saving somebody money by offering, their car or their other resources. That's a very, very good point, Jennifer. And I also want to mention, since you brought up the Alzheimer's Association, which is a national company to an organization to help caregivers all across the United States, but also here we are so fortunate in South Florida to have Alzheimer's Community Care. And it's an organization that covers 3 counties, Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie County, another wonderful resource, and their website is alzcare.org. So if you live in the southeast part of Florida and you need additional resources, you can call our southeast chapter of the Alzheimer's Association or Alzheimer's Community Care. They both offer similar information, but they also have specialized offerings that they can provide, like research information or daycare centers. So I want to bring that up because that's a very, very good point. These organizations are here to serve. What about grants? Now, you know, we touched on this a little bit because the Hilarity for Charity organization that we spoke about earlier in the show, they're funded by charity to provide services, but there are other grants possibly available at different times for caregivers too.
Absolutely. The one thing that I would say about that, and I think one of the best places to start, again, is the Area Agency on Aging, because often they know about it before a lot of us would know. Years ago, my local Area Agency on Aging had a grant for caregivers of persons with dementia that it was a one-page application, and you could get $1,500 cash.
Wow.
Now, you didn't have to show any financial documents. You didn't have to do anything fancy, like a big application. It was not a big waiting period. But, Marcia, I'll tell you what, they gave a lot of that money back because people didn't apply for it because they didn't believe that it was real.
Wow.
They were so shocked. And it was a real thing, but it was administered, the Area Agency on Aging was administered. It was through the state of Maryland. But people were just, it must be too complicated. Sometimes there really are gifts like that out there.
Yeah, and very good point. The Alzheimer's Community Care, which I just mentioned, they have scholarships available in the form of reduced prices for their daycare centers that you can apply for. So, maybe on average it might cost $70 to $85, $90 a day, depending upon where you live, for a daycare center. But here in Southeast Florida, Alzheimer's Community Care can underwrite part of that as a scholarship. So if you're on a really tight budget and you could use daycare, adult daycare services, going to a community for your loved one to experience socialization with other people, to be safe, to be monitored, to have lunch, then you want to check out scholarship programs because it is on a financial basis, but certainly help is out there. So these are all really great resources, Jennifer, that we're talking about to help caregivers because, they might feel like they're alone, but there are people out there just wanting, and willing to provide this assistance to them. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more from Jennifer Fitzpatrick and her book, Cruising Through Caregiving. Stay tuned.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. But it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Host Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on CareGiverSolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts. Arden Courts is a wonderful organization because they care about you, the caregiver, as well as caring for your loved one with memory loss. So Arden Courts community has lots of resources, and they have about 50 communities scattered throughout the United States, 10 of them right here in South Florida. They are unique because they care for people with memory loss in a wonderful surrounding that was designed just for people that have memory loss, and they've been doing it for over 25 years. They would like to offer to you this book. It's called the 36-Hour Day Book. Just for watching this show, they will give it to you if you just call their toll-free number, which is 888-478-2410. Call them, let them know that you heard about this offer on the Caregiver Solution Info Show, and they'll be happy to get your name and address and make sure that a copy of this wonderful book gets mailed out to you. This is another resource. It is full of communication techniques, lots of definitions, lots of things to help caregivers. It's been around a very long time, and it is still popular. It's in its 5th edition. Written by Dr. Peter Rabins and Nancy Mace. So the 36-hour day, free to you by calling 888-478-2410. So my guest today is Jennifer Fitzpatrick. She is a social worker with her master's, and she's an author of Cruising Through Caregiving. She speaks nationally to caregivers about caregiving, and she's with us today calling from her home way up north, and we're so glad that you're here, Jennifer. So thank you again. I'm so excited that you could be with us.
Yeah, me too, and that was great hearing more about Arden Courts. I'm actually going to be speaking at the Arden Courts of Wilmington, Delaware, and the Arden Courts of Cherry Hill, New Jersey next month.
Wonderful! Wow, I wish I could go up there to hear you, but I get you all to my
organization.
Thank you. I mean, 18 years with them, and it's a long time, but it just feels like yesterday. So good luck with that. You're going to be very helpful to a lot of people there. But today we have you all to ourselves, which is nice. I want to talk about one thing. We have a few minutes left, but let's talk about something that I don't think we've ever discussed on this program, and that is caring for someone who has a personality disorder. So I was wondering, are there unique challenges? Do they exist, these unique challenges, caring for someone with a personality disorder? And what if that person then also gets Alzheimer's disease? Can you talk a little bit about that and enlighten us?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So personality disorders are, it's actually a mental health condition, and it's believed that about 15% of us have a diagnosable personality disorder. But a lot of us don't get diagnosed. But some traits you might have heard of include, say, somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder, and everything is always about them. And it's not a new trait. It's their whole life. It's everything has been very focused on them. Another trait of someone with narcissistic personality disorder is actually that they lack empathy. Somebody who has borderline personality disorder traits is somebody who either thinks you're the best daughter in the world or the worst daughter in the world. It goes back and forth. But again, this is something, if that's your mom, she's been like that your whole life. It's not a new thing.
Kind of like bipolar?
No, it's interesting that you say that, Marcia, because a lot of times people do compare the two. A lot of times people with bipolar disorder It may look like it because people with borderline personality disorder, they can be reckless with sex, reckless with drinking, drugs, reckless driving, that sort of thing. But they are different. There are actually some major differences that I don't know that we have enough time to get into. But
probably not.
But personality disorders, it typically means that the person is challenging to get along with. During the course of their life, it's not that they're not a good person. They might have some wonderful traits and wonderful qualities, but they can be really tough to interact with, and sometimes it causes them trouble at work. It causes them trouble with relationships with romantic partners and family, daughters, sons, etc. And so caregiving, if you're caregiving for somebody who has one of the 10, and there are 10 personality disorders, we could do a whole hour just on that. If you're caring for somebody, and let's say for just the argument's sake for the moment that the person does not have dementia, I just want caregivers out there to know that when your loved one is ill, those qualities and characteristics that you may have found challenging are going to be probably more pronounced. That if you didn't ever feel like Mom appreciated your efforts, now that you're caregiving for her, I think a lot of us are in the position that we desperately want Mom's approval. Finally, you're spending all your time with her. You're taking care of her. You're doing everything possible to make her life comfortable, and she's still not showing appreciation. And I think that a lot of people are really disappointed by that. But if someone truly has those traits for their whole life, just know that they're not going to change, most likely.
And they're going to get worse, like you said, because perhaps whatever illness they might be suffering with, whether it's cancer or what other illness they might have, they're probably in pain or not feeling well. So that's just going to make somebody, more grouchy or disgruntled or snap at you. So, you're right. Whatever it was, it's probably going to get worse.
Right. And so a crisis or stress, like you said, pain, all of that, it's facing their mortality, it's probably going to be more difficult. But if somebody has dementia, I think what happens that we see that sneaks up on people sometimes is, let's say, again, let's use the example, it's your mom or your dad, and they have some of these traits. And maybe you realize that they're never going to be appreciative. Maybe they're going to sometimes act like they hate you and sometimes act like they love you. But when someone has dementia, because of what happens to our brain, so many times we see that those traits seem to go away because of what happens with the brain and dementia. So I think we've all heard the examples of people say, oh, gosh, my dad, I was just having coffee with a colleague today her dad had dementia, and he became very violent. And he'd never been violent, always super gentle, very lovely gentleman. And that we see that happen. Personality changes occur. Well, the opposite can happen. So maybe Mom has always been very, very critical, very difficult, maybe very, prone to adult temper tantrums. And now she gets along, she's sweet, she's nice. I think that can really sneak up on families. They say, what's going on? But sometimes that does happen, and if it does, don't feel guilty because you're enjoying Mom now. It's the disease is happening, but know that it's just one of those things that occurs with dementia sometimes if someone did have some of those difficult personality traits.
Yes, comes to mind a story. I worked with a caregiver whose mother was one of those tyrants and very critical and mean and nasty to her kids, but yet demanded the respect, and very ugly to her family and her children. And then later she got Alzheimer's disease, and she did the flip-flop, and she became sweet and kind and loving. And the daughter, when I had first met her, I said, how is Alzheimer's affecting you? And you know what she said? She goes, it's great. I said, it's great. Why is it great? And she said, because now my mom is kind and sweet and loving, and my whole life I never had that from my own mother. And she said, that's what I have to be grateful for. Even though now I'm her caregiver, she said, I feel like she appreciates me, she loves me, she tells me she loves me, which she had never heard her entire life.
Oh.
And so I guess if there's any kind of blessings to be had, like you said, enjoy the time you're with them, however it comes, because in her case, she was actually happier having a mom that had a memory loss, because it just made them both love each other more and be there together in the moment. So it can work both ways, like you said.
And it's hard, but I'm glad that family that you were talking about was able to embrace it. I think a lot of families really just say, oh, I feel guilty, I shouldn't be liking this, but, there's nothing you can do about it either way. And I think, like you said, that one family you worked with, that woman embraced it, and that was a good thing for them.
Yeah, it's not easy. So people just need to be aware of this. So thank you for, bringing that topic to us about the personality disorder and what can happen. So before we go, let's just talk about a few signs of caregiver burnout. I like to share those things with caregivers, because when they're caregiving, they may not realize when that time comes if they are exhibiting signs of burnout. So let's talk about some of those signs, Jennifer.
Well, for one, I think one of the biggest ones is when someone who loves you tells you they're worried about you. I'm not talking about the nosy neighbor that is gossipy. I'm talking about when a good friend tells you, you look tired, I'm worried about you, you don't seem like yourself, or if your spouse is saying that to you, or if another good friend or colleague says that to you, take it seriously. I think a lot of times we do not recognize signs of burnout in ourselves, but you're not sleeping. If maybe you usually your acid reflux is under control and now it's flaring up, or you suddenly start having stomach problems. There can be so many physical manifestations of caregiver burnout, psychological ones. Maybe if you're not tending to your spiritual practices the way that you once did, you're not making time for exercising, eating, and sleeping. But I think one of the most telling ones is when someone that you know genuinely loves you tells you that they're concerned about you.
Yeah, take it to heart, because they do care, and you just don't realize sometimes. It's sort of like the lobster going in the boiling water,
Yeah.
It's just it goes in and goes in until he doesn't even realize he's in the hot water before it's too late. So caregivers need to realize this. And another sign is when you withdraw from your social life and you're not going out with friends like you used to. You're not even talking on the phone with them as much as you used to, because even though you're a caregiver and even though it takes a lot of your time, caregivers need to keep connected to their support group. And I don't mean a formal one, but their support group could be a friend or a neighbor or a relative that just they talk to and kind of vent, because caregivers sometimes need to let it out,
They really do.
Mm-hmm. And that's another way to know that, you're reaching burnout if you are withdrawing and you're not connecting in all of those ways. And you mentioned, of course, your health. And, caregivers can actually go to the scale in the bathroom and find out if they have a sign, because they can either gain lots of weight while they're caregiving, or they could lose a lot of weight while they're caregiving. And either way, that could be also a sign of caregiver burnout and the stress that you're under. Also, snapping, at people. That's why you said your friend may say, hey, you're not yourself. What's going on with you? You're never like this. This isn't your usual. So those are all signs of caregiver burnout, and caregivers need to be aware of that, because, as you said, Jennifer, it takes more than one person to care for someone, and caregivers can't do it alone. So this has been such a wonderful time with you, Jennifer. I want to thank you for coming on and lending all of your expertise and all the information for caregivers. If somebody wanted more information about you, about the special virtual book club coming up, do you have a website they can go to?
Yeah, just go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. You can register for the virtual dementia book club, co-sponsored by Oasis Senior Advisors Hilarity for Charity. So cruisingthroughcaregiving.com. And then more about me, jenniferfitzpatrick.com.
Okay, just your name is all they need to know, jenniferfitzpatrick.com. and you can check her out online and get more information. And it'll be great because she has been all over the country helping caregivers, and so glad that you've joined us today. And I want to remind everybody, too, that if you call and get your free 36-hour-day book, it'll be in your hands within a short period of time. And all you have to do to get this book is call 888-478-2410. Again, 888-478-2410, the 36-hour-day book. It's a wonderful resource, so call today and get that. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll see you next time.
Marsha.
And for all of you, same time, same place, next week, Tuesdays, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, don't forget, give somebody a hug because they need it, and so do you. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marsha Teal. Join us next week as Marsha, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.